All right, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Awareness Channel. My name is TC. So today, talk about something a little different. Y'all might sound a little crazy to y'all, but I'm gonna go into it anyway. Now, I asked my chat GPT to imagine a world where money and war did not exist and colonization didn't happen. No war, no money, no colonization. Everything else remained the same. The rate at which we developed our countries and our societies, all that still existed, except we didn't have money, we didn't use money, we didn't go to war, and we didn't run around colonizing the shit out of each other. You know what I'm saying? It was a world where men and women, humans, actually had common sense. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it. This is what ChatGPT spit back out at me. All right. So part one went like similar. I'm just gonna paraphrase the shit, but I'm gonna go down all the points. Money and war, humanity's favorite toys, and they are making money and blowing shit up. That's all humans know how to do good. You know what I mean? At some point, somebody came along and said, "Hey, let's take these little chunks of rocks and make these little shiny rocks and make them units of exchange for our goods and services. If you ain't got no rocks, you don't get no goods and services." And it started something like that. Instead of everybody just using what was there because there was plenty to go around. Somebody did that during our lifetime. And then they evolved to paper, and now it's numbers on a computer screen, but you get the idea. And then the other thing was, hey, let's just make a whole industry out of blowing each other the fuck up. Somebody came along with those two concepts, money and war. And we've been living by that shit ever since. Imagine if we use the money that we use on the military industrial complex for the betterment of the nation itself. And then it came to part two. Part two is like this. This is what ChatGPT spit back at me. Technology without profit. I've known about technology without profit for a long time. I've known about planned obsolescence for a long time. Motherfuckers make shit so it'll break within a certain amount of time so you'll get a new one. Motherfucker, everything got to be updated. Shit wear out. Shit, man, listen. It's satellites that's been in space for decades and decades and they ain't wearing out. And you telling me they can't make a goddamn car that can last more than 5 years? Or a goddamn phone that won't last more than 2 years? No, it's all so you can keep the profit machine going. You know what I mean? Planned obsolescence, useful goddamn garbage that you have to replace constantly. In a world without profit, they'll make shit that lasts. They'll make shit that you can use and reuse again because ain't no need to make no profit on nothing. You know what I mean? Technology wouldn't stall every year or wouldn't be held back every year so that you can drain every dime out of what you got before you could give somebody something better. You know? Imagine a goddamn scientist just coming up and saying, "Hey, I found a cure for cancer. You want it?" Instead of, "Hey, I found some medicine that can help you fight and keep a motherfucker alive with cancer so they can pay you for the rest of your life. Or until they die." Instead of just curing it. No, you gotta keep that motherfucking profit machine going. So no, ain't gonna be no cures unless you're in a world where profit isn't the main objective. Curing the body is. And then it went on to part three. It said, Imagine a culture without war. You know what I'm saying? Imagine not having to worry about your country drafting its young, best and brightest and sending them off to go die over some political disagreement. You know what I mean? Because they will draft your ass and make you do it at the point of a gun to go kill other poor people so politicians can, have what it is they think they want. Imagine where that shit didn't, imagine a world where you didn't have to worry about that. You didn't ever have to worry about having to go to war or being shot down in the street like a dog for somebody's political beliefs. You could focus more on art. You could focus on music. You could focus on agriculture. You could focus on science. You could focus on architecture. You could focus on anything. I might have said architecture twice. But human competition, it switches from who has the biggest army to who has the best art and the best festivals and the best creativity and the most beautiful lands, countryside. You know what I mean? I mean, you ain't got to invade nothing. Your shit just as good as everybody else. And then ChatGPT went into what Africa might look like had it never been colonized. And it spit back me at, is what it says, if Africa had been left alone, powerful empires would expand. Ancient universities explode with knowledge. Technology grows with the environment. And borders, they actually make sense. Because they wouldn't have been drawn up by a bunch of motherfuckers in Berlin with no Africans present. Africa would probably be a leader in solar technology, agriculture, medicine, cultural innovation, all kinds of shit. Africa would have led the world in, had it been allowed to develop on its own at the same rate as everybody else. However, some societies do develop faster than others. I mean, the African nations were ahead of the Europeans at one time, so, still, if allowed to develop and never colonized, imagine what Africa could be. And then it kicked back, it talked a little bit about South America. South America, man. South America had some really, really great civilizations, Imagine if those civilizations hadn't been conquered and allowed to develop right at the same rate as everybody else in the world. Imagine how very different South America would look. You already know that the Amazon rainforest is a big ass pharmacy. Imagine all of with a cure for everything right down in there. Imagine if that had been developed for the use of mankind instead to turn a profit. All of that would have come out of South America. All of the agriculture and technology. I mean, these men used to build gardens in the side of mountains with the terrace farming. And they used to build whole cities and pyramids and everything that the European had, South Americans had. Imagine if all of that had been allowed to develop on its own right up to now. Same with Australia and the Aboriginal people. Same with them. Imagine if they'd been left alone. Imagine if the people in the colder parts of the world had been left alone to develop their technology their own way and develop to the catalog of world knowledge, and everybody just shared the planet and took care of it instead of trying to bleed it for all they could get out of it, If we took time out and understand what kind of world we could have had, we could build, pieces of it right here, right now. If we just understood what kind of world we could have had. And let me tell you something else. There's somewhere in the universe, all the civilizations and planets and societies, somewhere in the universe where this type of society really does exist, just not here. You got to open your mind up. There's somewhere in the universe, there's a society that runs like this. You dig me? I'm sure at some point in human history, a society ran like this. I don't know how long it ran, but I'm sure it must have. But anyway, let me know what y'all think. I mean, what other kind of society can you come up with that we can live in where money and war and self-destruction isn't the main objective for mankind? Anyway, I told you I was going to be a little crazy tonight, but thanks for coming by and listening to me talk my shit. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next one. TC, and I'm out. Peace.